Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Coach Prime, the Colorado Buffaloes, opening up the 2024 season, hosting North Dakota State. Now, many of you guys know my broad takeaways from this matchup. I just look at Colorado and say, I don't know how North Dakota State, matches up athletically with Colorado, specifically on the perimeter, right? We gave a lot of credit to North Dakota State when we broke this football game down. North Dakota State, they're physical, they're disciplined. They don't miss a lot of tackles. But I look at this matchup and say, how does North Dakota State deal with LeJontay Wester and Travis Hunter and Will Shepard and Jimmy Horn on the outside? So I like Colorado in this game. That being said, I do think there's a lot more interesting storylines for this Colorado program heading into North Dakota State. And I want to talk about 5 players that, I think surprise a lot of people nationally, maybe not within the Colorado fan base community, but nationally, as guys that I think are going to be really good football players for Colorado. They're going to get that opportunity to show it against North Dakota State. Fired up to get into it now. Before we do it, as always, massive shout out to the Colorado fans, whether we're breaking down games, whether we're talking about the transfer portal additions, the amount of support y'all continue to show to the fellas. It means the absolute world. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. I think even more importantly, we're going to be breaking this football game down right after it happens. Would love to hear from you guys in terms of the players that you think surprise and kind of stand out Thursday night for Colorado. Without further ado, let's get into my 5. I want to start with former Houston defensive lineman Chidi Noakes, coming over from Houston. This kid, has played so much football. He's played in over 40 games, 33 starts. He had an average depth of tackle last year of 0.4 yards down the field. This was a transfer portal addition that I think massively flew under the radar because he was banged up last year. He's not necessarily one of those defensive linemen that is going to light up the stat sheet, right? But you talk about where Colorado needs to get better heading into 2024, it's stopping the run. Having a lack of better terms, a fire hydrant on the inside of the defensive line. This is going to be a massive help for Colorado. At 5'11", 290, he is not necessarily the biggest and most physically imposing defensive lineman on the football field. But when you are 5'11", you have that ability to play with good leverage, play with good pads, come out of your stance very, very low, and not get moved off the football. That's what Chidi Noakes was going to bring to this Colorado defense. I don't expect Chidi to have 10 sacks and 15 tackles for loss in the 2024 season, but kind of that unspoken, unsung hero of the Colorado defense. I think it has a really good chance to beat Chidi, and having these kind of defensive linemen on the middle, it's only going to help your linebacker play get better. If you have guys that can eat up double teams, win at the point of attack, keep your linebackers free and flowing downhill, it's something Colorado didn't totally get in 2023, and I think they get it from Chidi Noakes in 2024. And you look at North Dakota State, it's going to be a test. If they're going to run the football 65% of the time, Chidi Noakes being that dog on the inside of the defensive line, for lack of better terms, I think is going to be a massive story. And again, the evaluation of Chidi should not be how many tackles for loss or how many sacks or how many tackles he has, but much more when you watch the film, is he doing what he needs to do? Is he strong at the point of attack? Because that is where he thrives. Played exceptional against a very good Texas offensive line last year. Sign me up for Chidi Noakes. I think just surprising a lot of people with how physically imposing he can be on the inside of the defensive line. Going to number 2, kind of one of my guys, Nikai Hill-Green. As a Michigan fan myself, I'm very familiar with Nikai Hill-Green. And I would remind Colorado fans that Nikai Hill-Green, when he played for Michigan healthy in 2021, was a starting linebacker for the first half of the season, played over 370 snaps for a Michigan defense that went to the college football playoffs. This kid has the opportunity to be a massive upgrade at that off-ball linebacker spot, which was a problem for Colorado last year. You take a look at the season he had at Charlotte in 2023, 29 run stops, and averaged up to tackle at 2.9 yards down the field. What does that tell us about Nikai Hill-Green? This kid comes downhill. He makes his plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. He's got really good range. 6'2", 230. He's a big physical linebacker, but he can go sideline to sideline. And North Dakota State's going to run the football in a variety of different ways, making these Colorado linebackers be disciplined with their eyes. Nikai Hill-Green's played a lot of football. He has the physicality and the traits that we want in an off-ball linebacker. I think the linebacker position is probably up for grabs for Colorado, right? You got Levante Bentley, you got Trevor Woods, you added a few other names in the transfer portal. I wouldn't be surprised if Nikai Hill-Green comes in and kind of takes one of those starting linebacker spots. Going to the offensive side of the football, I want to start. Actually, I take that back. We're going to stick on the defensive side and talk about Preston Hodge. I think my biggest question for Preston Hodge has nothing to do with what he can do in coverage. And you look at North Dakota State, I don't think these Colorado defensive backs will be challenged that much in the passing attack. One, North Dakota State doesn't really want to throw the football. Number two, I don't think they have the difference makers at the wide receiver position to challenge guys like Preston Hodge and a guy like Travis Hunter, obviously DJ McKinney. That being said, my big question mark for Preston Hodge and why I'm including him in this list is when you play that nickel corner spot, not only do you have to be very good in coverage, but you go back to Michigan last year, one of, if not their best player on defense, Mikey Sandstrom, playing the nickel spot, was phenomenal in run support. In the Big 12, you're going to see a lot of football teams that want to run the football. Do you have the ability to have your nickel corner give you a really good coverage ability, which we know Preston Hodge is going to have, but at the same time, be a body in the box to really provide being an asset in run support? I don't know how much Preston Hodge will play in this football game because I could see Colorado playing with 3 off-ball linebackers as opposed to 2 and adding the nickel on the field. Excuse me. But when he does play, I'm really interested to see what he can do in run support. He's 6 foot, almost 200 pounds. Like, this is a physical nickelback that can get involved in the run game. Only missed 9% of his tackles last year at Liberty. My eyeballs are going to be on Preston Hodge because you talk about stopping the run in the Big 12. You're going to need your nickels to come up and give you that run support. Going to the offensive side of the football, I want to start with, again, the Colorado fans know I'm going to go to Will Shepard. What I think Will Shepard brings is that vertical threat to this Colorado offense where, again, you go back to last year, they had guys that could do it, but they had a lot of guys that more excelled in those short intermediate route trees, right? Travis Hunter, Xavier Weaver, Jimmy Horn Jr., not guys that you would probably say you're our vertical pass catching threat. I think Will Shepard can be that guy. You take a look at him coming from Vanderbilt, over 17 touchdowns the last 2 seasons in the SEC on an offense that really struggled to move the football. When Vanderbilt was moving the football and having explosive plays, Will Shepard was normally involved in those plays. At 6'3", 205, can be an exceptional red zone target, but more importantly, he's one of those guys that when you play him on offense, you're going to have to respect what he can bring vertically down the field. And when you have a guy that you have to respect, those safeties have to play a little farther back. It's going to open up the middle of the field for guys like Travis Hunter and LeJonte Wester to get to work. Will Shepard's going to be a massive asset for this Colorado team, not only creating explosive plays himself, but creating a little bit more space for the other playmakers on this Colorado, the offense, specifically in the wide receiver room. Another guy, just quickly shout out, LeJonte Wester. I think he leads this team in receptions and receiving yards, potentially even touchdowns too. LeJonte Wester, I think you saw, if you read the spring camp and the fall camp intel, LeJonte Wester is going to be a guy, he's the exact kind of wide receiver that Shedeur Sanders likes to go to, ball out quick to a guy that can create after the catch. LeJonte Wester last year had over 600 yards after the catch. This kid is dynamic with the football in his hands, and when you have a guy like Will Shepard that's going to create space for guys like LeJonte Wester, I think that's a really good combination for this Colorado offense. Going to the last guy, and kind of an unsung hero from Colorado, and Colorado's offensive line took a lot of heat in terms of how poor they were. And they were poor. I don't think any Colorado fan would argue with that. Hank Zelinskas, as a true freshman in the 2023 season, was pretty damn good for Colorado. Obviously battled some injuries, was in and out of the lineup. You take a look at the numbers. 153 pass pro snaps, gave up only 1 sack, only 3 quarterback hurries. It sounds like he's just kind of gone wall to wall at the starting center spot. And this isn't a situation like last year where they just had to give it to any guy that was capable of playing. Like, there are some legitimate good options at center for Colorado in the true sophomore. Sounds like he has really won that battle. I think this kid can be really good for Colorado. Obviously, we're going to be looking at the offensive line a lot. North Dakota State has a big physical, not necessarily big, but physical defensive line. You want to see how this Colorado offensive line that was kind of primarily overhauled with transfers. You got a guy in Hank Solinskas who was good last year. He's going into year 2. You expect him to get better. My eyeballs going to be on Hank Solinskas. We'll close it out there again. Would love to hear from you guys in the comments section in terms of players that you think might surprise on Thursday night. Appreciate y'all rocking with the fellas. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.